Doesn't matter what side of this House you're on, the fact is that this budget to date has gone down particularly well. And I think that the next point I'd make to the Labor Party, there are sound grounds to criticise this budget, but when you have members opposite using any story at all to criticise it, then they don't do themselves any good. Let's take Grant Robertson. He suggested... Robertson, sorry, my apology. He made the point that this budget was not doing enough in the area of redistribution and wanted more of the sort of policies that they followed over the last 9 years. Well, I'd remind the member that during that period of time, New Zealand workers probably lost, relative to Australian workers, about $100 in wages. And our wages over the last 30 or 40 years, relative to Australians, has dropped $300 to $400 in relative terms. And it's about time that we had policies that dealt with that. The only speaker from the opposition that I've heard get close to criticising this budget on a sound basis was David Parker. And I thought that he had some points that we should take up. And the fact he pointed to the risks that relate to the high level of overseas borrowing that New Zealand has already and the fact that it is going to expand was a criticism that was worth making. Mr. Speaker, I think the Minister and the Chair and the Finance Minister, given what they proposed, have done a pretty good job on the tax package. I personally have some problem with it. I believe that the rate, the 12.5% rate, should not have gone down to 10.5%. I think they should have rounded off the 30-30-30 rather than have the discrepancy that they're going to have for 28% for companies and 33% for personal. And I think possibly the Minister and the Chair, if he could have done that, may well have wanted to do that. My main criticism, however, is in the area of GST. I do not believe that it was necessary to raise GST. It would have meant, of course, that the government would have had to take some tough decisions in the expenditure field. But if you look through the budget, there's about $2.5 billion in the budget, which I would classify as corporate welfare, a lot of it unnecessary, and that's about twice or double what the net benefit is from GST. If you look at government expenditure, Mr. Speaker, this budget is providing for a 9% increase in government spending. It's just about as bad as what the Labor Party used to do during their period. And frankly, 9% increases in government expenditure year on year is totally unsustainable. You have seen government expenditure increase by approximately $6 billion or 9%. And that is 4 times the rate of inflation. Now, I grant that the Minister would probably point out to me that 2% of that 9 is compensation for the GST, and I accept that, but that's still increase in government expenditure at the rate of 3 times government expenditure. And had we not had to increase GST, instead of someone on $40,000 getting $10 a week, they'd have got $23 a week. Instead of getting $500 benefit, they'd have got $1,300. Someone on 52, instead of getting $745 a year, would have got over $1,600 benefit. In other words, $31 benefit rather than the $14. But the die's been cast, and I think in future the government's going to have to pay a lot more attention to government expenditure, particularly that government expenditure which is not returning to the nation as much as it would have returned had it been left in the private sector.
Mr. Chairman. Call Trevor Mallard.